ESPN 97.7 and 100.1. Watch live on QSportsTalk.com.
The artist of the day is Ozzy Osbourne today, Steve, because the Osbournes debuted on this day, the TV show. I had a phase of my life I'm not proud of that I used to watch that show, and it wasn't good. No more tears.
So this is what happened. This is what happens when I'm not on the show. That's our artist of the day.
It's amazing that
choices?
Ozzy hasn't been yet. It's crazy.
I wanted Sugar Ray.
That would have been better, I think.
I know.
It would have been more work for you, though.
All right, let's go to our guest line. Bring on our first guest today. As promised, we're going to talk. Paulie's favorite topic. We're going to talk the bubble with JBR Bracketology, college basketball analytics expert. Thanks so much for coming on. Let's jump right into it because this feels like the season for Syracuse tonight on the road at Clemson. So let's start with what are SU's chances to make the tournament with an at-large bid should they win tonight? What do you think they would still have to do down in D.C. to get in?
I think if they win tonight, they got a decent shot. I think a minimum, they're going to have to win at least one game in the ACC tournament, even with a win tonight. But a win tonight gets them in the conversation, right? I don't believe that they have an at-large chance if they don't win tonight.
Okay, all right. So I was going to say, so if they lose tonight, and let's say they went to the finals, just hypothetically speaking, they don't win the ACC tournament, but they make it to the finals, and that would mean that they probably beat a pretty good team or two along the way. Do you think that would put them back in the conversation, or tonight is a deal breaker? You lose tonight, and you got to win it all down in D.C.?
They would be in the conversation. I don't think it's fair to say they got no shot. They would be in the conversation. There's a lot of other teams playing games the next week and a half as well. So, it depends a little bit on what the rest of the teams on the bubble do, how many bid stealers we have and stuff like that. So they'd be in the conversation. But no, I don't think that they can get an at-large berth without a win tonight because you would be finishing the regular season likely with just one win versus the tournament field, which was against North Carolina.
All right, so let's talk about the other teams in the ACC right now. Let's look at Clemson, for instance. I mean, this game tonight, they seem like they're safely in the field, but everybody's jockeying for position, trying to get that double bye in the ACC tournament, trying to improve their seeding in the NCAAs. What can you kind of lay out for us the scenarios for Clemson if they win tonight versus if they lose tonight, and what their NCAA tournament picture looks like?
Yeah, so Clemson's actually in a pretty good spot. They had a very strong non-conference where they picked up wins over Boise State, at Alabama, South Carolina, who's having a great season, and TCU. So they came into ACC play with a very strong resume already. So I have Clemson as a 5 seed right now. I think if they win, because ultimately it would only be a quad 3 win. If they win, they would stay a 5 seed. If they lost, it would probably drop them back to a 6 seed. So, we're kind of at the point in the season where there's not going to be a lot of movement from one game.
All right, so you look at who's safely in the field from the ACC. North Carolina, Duke, Clemson, safely in, right? What do you make of Virginia right now? How would you categorize the Cavaliers at this stage?
So I have Virginia in. I have them 4th to last team in. So they are in the field. As long as they beat Georgia Tech, I believe that's their only game remaining.
Yes.
As long as they beat Georgia Tech, I think they're okay, even if they go 0-1 in the ACC tournament. I guess it slightly depends on who that 0-1 is against, but I think that they're okay, even at 0-1 in the ACC tournament.
Okay. How about Wake Forest? Another popular pick right now. A lot of the bracketologists we've seen have them among the last 4 in. Where do you have Wake Forest, and kind of what's the scenario for the Demon Deacons to get in?
Yeah, I have Wake Forest first 4 out right now. Their biggest issue right now is probably their road record. They're 2-9 in true road games, and unfortunately for them, they don't have any road games left. So that 2-9 is going to stick with them all the way to Selection Sunday. But I think Wake Forest is probably okay if they win their last 2 games this week. I think they're probably in. Their net ranking is 31. The best net to ever be left out was 33. So they're kind of right right on the edge there. But I think if they win these next two games and get their resume metrics to a little bit more of a respectable spot. Right now they are at number 57 strength of record. So if they win the last two, including beating Clemson, that should get them into the top 50. And then, when the committee looks at their net and KenPom and some of the other efficiency metrics, I think that would be enough to get them in. But anytime you're 2-9 on the road, that's going to be a tough sticking point for probably some of the committee members.
All right, I want to ask about one more ACC team. Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
I want to follow up on the Wake thing. How is there such a discrepancy between Wake and Syracuse? Syracuse has 4 road wins, has one more quad 1 win than them, and there's almost 50 spots between the two of them.
So Wake Forest has actually worse resume metrics, right? So there's 5 different metrics that the committee looks at. One is the net, that I think most people would be aware of at this point. And then there's 2 resume metrics. There's KPI and strength of record, and then there's 2 efficiency metrics. There's BPI and KenPom. So Syracuse actually has much better resume metrics than Wake Forest. So your intuition there is correct. Syracuse has a 36 KPI and 40 strength of record for a 38.0 resume average, which that alone would be the second best resume average to ever be left out behind 2021 Louisville, who also only had 1 win versus the field. But Wake Forest is quite a bit below Syracuse. They have a 51 KPI and 57 strength of record for a 54 resume average. So they have better efficiency metrics. They've done better in blowing out opponents and keeping losses close. But in terms of pure resume, I don't think you're wrong to argue that Syracuse would be superior.
I do want to ask you about another ACC team that might be the most polarizing here in Central New York, and that is Pittsburgh. We keep seeing Pitt's name pop up in and around the bubble, yet Syracuse beat them head-to-head twice. What are your thoughts on the Pitt Panthers?
So right now I have Pittsburgh, I think, let's see. Yeah, right now I have them 12th team out. Their non-conference was very poor. It was number 343 in the country, and there's nothing the committee loves more than punishing teams at the bubble with a poor non-conference. So I think with the head-to-head sweep that Syracuse has over Pittsburgh, I think as long as Syracuse wins tonight at Clemson, I can't imagine Pittsburgh being seated ahead of Clemson. Ahead of Syracuse.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because I know last year much was made about Clemson sweeping NC State. They have 3 wins against them, and NC State got an 11 seed, and Clemson was first 4 out. But NC State had a much cleaner sheet. NC State didn't have any bad losses, whereas Clemson had 2 quad 3 losses, 2 quad 4 losses, and a non-conference strength of schedule in the 300. So they kind of had a lot of other things working against them. Head-to-head isn't a huge thing, but I do think when they're down to maybe 5 or 6 teams that they're deciding on for the last couple spots, I do think that Clemson's Syracuse's sweep over Pittsburgh would be significant.
So much has been made about the net and, the Big 12 in particular. There's some ACC coaches who have come out and said that the Big 12 has manipulated the net to its advantage, playing lackluster non-conference schedule, blowing everybody out, and then their metrics go up to the point where by the time they get to conference play, everybody in the Big 12 has a high net, and then, everything's a quad 1 and quad 2. What do you make of the net, and do you think it will be changed at all in the offseason, / do you think teams will change how they schedule moving forward after they saw kind of how it worked out for the Big 12 this year?
I don't think that they will change the net formula, but that will be interesting to see if they make any adjustments. But ultimately, it's going to come down to what the committee does with a lot of these Big 12 teams that played poor non-conference strength of schedules. I mean, there are multiple teams that are in the field from the Big 12 that have a non-conference strength of schedule in the 300s. And then, the problem is kind of brought up to a greater magnitude when you realize that not only did they play poor non-conference, but they lost to the only good teams they played. I mean, TCU, for example, played 2 top 100 opponents, including Clemson, and lost both of them. And those are the only two good teams that they played. Texas Tech only played two good teams, lost to both of them. Cincinnati only played two good teams, lost to both of them. I mean, there were a number of Big 12 teams that only played two, maybe three good teams, and lost all of them. And Iowa State's another one. Iowa State, I have as the last 2 seed. They lost to Virginia Tech on a neutral floor. So I guess what I really think is it's going to come down to the committee. If the committee, pushes some of these teams a little bit further down the seed list as a result of the poor non-conference, then you would like to think coaches will adjust for next year and schedule tougher. But if the committee does not seemingly punish any of these teams for their non-conference, then I'm not sure what incentive they have to change.
Here in another couple of weeks, last question for me, another couple of weeks, everybody's going to be filling out their brackets and trying to pick a Final Four and try to pick a champion. And I know there's a lot of basketball to be played between now and Selection Sunday, but is there a team or two that kind of stands out to you that, I know you probably want to see the draw first, but do you have your eye on a couple of teams thinking, those are national, title contenders in my mind?
I think my top pick right now is for UConn to go back-to-back. They just look like the clear best team in the country in my eyes.
All right. Very good. Very insightful stuff. We really appreciate you coming on. Thanks so much. Enjoy the next couple of weeks. I'm sure you're going to be busy, and hopefully we can do it again down the road.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. JBR Bracketology, college basketball analytics expert. We'll take a timeout here. We'll go back-to-back with our interviews. We've got the voice of the Clemson Tigers, Don Munson, joining us on the other side. We're back after this on ESPN Radio.